The gun wasn't supposed to go off. That's what they'd say later, when the blood stopped pooling, when the sirens faded, when Victor Caldwell's empire finally stopped burning. But standing in that marble foyer with his son's body cooling at his feet, Victor knew better. This wasn't an accident. This was the price of revenge wrapped in wedding vows. It started with a broken heart and a dangerous proposal. It ended with gunfire and grief so thick you could taste it. My name is Ethan Hale, and I married the devil to punish the woman I loved. Want to see how far this story reaches? Hit that like button and drop your city in the comments below. Now let me take you back to where it all began. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't announce itself. There's no warning bell, no flashing sign that tells you your entire world is about to collapse. One moment you're climbing the stairs of the Caldwell estate with a bottle of champagne and a pocket full of hope. And the next you're standing in a doorway watching your girlfriend fuck your best friend on Egyptian cotton sheets that probably cost more than your monthly rent. I didn't scream, didn't throw the bottle or demand answers or do any of the dramatic shit you see in movies. I just stood there, frozen like some pathetic statue, while Claire, my Claire, the woman I'd planned to propose to next month, arched her back and moaned Marcus's name like it was a prayer. They didn't even notice me. That was the worst part. I was so insignificant in that moment that my presence didn't even register. I turned and walked. Down the hall, past oil paintings worth more than my entire existence, my feet moving on autopilot while my brain tried to catch up with what my eyes had just witnessed. 2 years. 2 goddamn years of late-night phone calls and weekend getaways, and talking about the future like it was something we were building together instead of a fantasy I'd been constructing alone. The grand staircase stretched below me, all marble and gold railings, and the kind of obscene wealth that made my studio apartment look like a cardboard box. My hand gripped the banister, knuckles white, and I wondered if this was what drowning felt like. If you could suffocate on air that smelled like money and lies. Ethan? The voice came from below, smooth as aged whiskey and just as dangerous. Victor Caldwell stood at the base of the stairs, hands in the pockets of slacks that probably cost what I made in a month. He was 53 but looked 40, with silver threading through dark hair and eyes that could calculate your net worth and your life expectancy in the same glance. Claire's father, Marcus's employer, the man who owned half the city's underground and all of its fear. I stopped walking. Didn't trust myself to speak. I assume, Victor said, his voice carrying up the staircase with perfect clarity, you've discovered why I asked you here tonight. That made me look at him. Really look at him. You knew. It wasn't a question. The slight curve of his mouth confirmed it. My son has always had terrible taste in confidants, Victor said, and my judgment in daughters has proven equally poor. He climbed the stairs, each step measured and deliberate. When he reached me, I could smell his cologne, something expensive and predatory. Up close, I could see the coldness in his eyes, the kind that came from watching men beg before you killed them. You're hurt, he observed, angry, humiliated. Fuck off. The words came out flat, empty. I didn't have the energy for rage yet. That would come later, in the middle of the night, when I was alone, and the image of Claire's face wouldn't stop replaying in my head. Victor smiled. Actually smiled. Good. Anger is useful. Devastation is not. What do you want? To make you an offer. He gestured toward his study, a massive room off the main hall that I'd glimpsed once before. 5 minutes. If you're not interested, you can leave and never see any of us again. I'll even throw in a severance package for your trouble. Call it compensation for emotional damages. I should have walked out. Should have told him to shove his offer and his blood money and gone home to get spectacularly drunk. But there was something in his voice, some dark promise that hooked into the raw wound in my chest and wouldn't let go. 5 minutes, I heard myself say. The study was exactly what you'd expect from a man like Victor Caldwell. All dark wood and leather, bookshelves lined with first editions that were probably worth more than most people's houses. He poured 2 glasses of something amber from a crystal decanter, handed me one without asking if I wanted it. I drank it anyway. It burned going down, which felt appropriate. You're 27, Victor said, settling into a chair that looked like a throne. You work at Marcus's investment firm, pulling in a respectable but unimpressive salary. You met my daughter at a charity gala 2 years ago and have been dating her ever since. under the mistaken impression that she cared about you as much as you cared about her. Each word was a scalpel, precise and cutting. I stayed standing, glass clutched in my hand like a lifeline. You're a good man, Ethan, honest, hard-working, boring as hell if we're being frank, but decent. Victor swirled his drink, studying me over the rim. And my daughter just destroyed you. Get to the point. I want you to marry me. The glass slipped from my fingers. I caught it at the last second, whiskey sloshing over my hand. What? Not romantically, obviously, Victor continued, like he hadn't just said the most insane thing I'd ever heard. A marriage of convenience, of strategy, of revenge, if you want to be poetic about it. I stared at him, tried to find some indication that this was a joke, a test, anything other than a genuine proposition. His face remained impassive, waiting. You're fucking crazy. I'm practical. He set his glass down, leaned forward. My son is a coward who betrays the people who trust him. My daughter is a spoiled child who treats relationships like accessories. They both need to learn that actions have consequences. And you, his eyes locked onto mine, you need to hurt them the way they hurt you. By marrying you, by becoming my husband, my partner, the person who stands at my side at every family function, every business meeting, every moment of their miserable lives. Victor's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. Imagine it, Ethan. Walking into every room with the power they denied you. Watching Claire realize she threw away someone I valued enough to marry. Seeing Marcus understand that his boss's new spouse is the man whose life he helped destroy. My heart was pounding. From shock or something darker, I couldn't tell. This is insane. This is business. Victor stood, moved to the window overlooking the estate gardens. I need someone untainted by my world. Someone the authorities won't immediately connect to my operations. Someone young enough, presentable enough to be believable as, he paused, a romantic choice. But it wouldn't be romantic. No. He turned back to me. It would be strategic. You'd live here, attend events as my husband, present a unified front to the world. In exchange, you'd have access to wealth you've never imagined. Protection from anyone who might want to hurt you. And the satisfaction of watching the two people who betrayed you realize what they lost. I wanted to say no, wanted to tell him he was delusional and walk out of this mansion and never look back. But the whiskey was warm in my veins, and the image of Claire's face was burned into my brain, and something cold and vicious was unfurling in my chest. What's in it for you? I asked. Victor's smile widened. Beyond the pleasure of watching my children squirm, I have enemies, Ethan, people who would love nothing more than to find a weakness, a vulnerability to exploit. A sudden marriage to someone outside my world, someone clean, someone unexpected, creates confusion, makes me unpredictable. And in my line of work, unpredictability keeps you alive. You want to use me as a shield? Well, I want to give you the tools to destroy the people who hurt you while simultaneously protecting my interests. Call it a mutually beneficial arrangement. I looked at him, really looked at him, saw the calculation in his eyes, the absence of anything resembling warmth or compassion. This man didn't offer help. He offered transactions. And somehow, standing in his study with my heart in pieces and rage finally starting to burn through the shock, that felt honest in a way nothing else had tonight. I need time to think, I said. You have until tomorrow morning. After that, the offer expires. Victor walked to his desk, pulled out a business card with nothing but a phone number on it. Call me by 9 a.m. with your answer, yes or no. No negotiations, no second chances. I took the card. The paper felt heavy, weighted with implications I couldn't fully process. If I say yes, I heard myself ask, what happens next? Then we announce our engagement at this weekend's charity gala in front of Claire, Marcus, and everyone who matters in this city. His eyes glittered. And we watch the world burn. I left the estate in a daze, driving through streets I didn't see, past buildings that barely registered. When I finally made it back to my apartment, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed. A text from Claire. Where are you? We need to talk. I deleted it without responding. Another buzz. Marcus this time. Man, I'm so sorry. It just happened. Can we meet up? The laugh that came out of me sounded broken, jagged. It just happened, like they'd tripped and fallen into bed together, like my pain was an accident instead of a choice they'd made. I pulled out Victor's card, stared at those 10 digits that represented a door I couldn't walk back through once I opened it. The smart choice was obvious. Walk away. Heal. Move on like a normal person who didn't marry crime lords for revenge. But I'd been smart my whole life. Smart enough to work my ass off at a job I hated, to date a woman who was slumming it with the help, to believe in a future that was never real. And where had smart gotten me? I called the number. Victor answered on the second ring. That was faster than I expected. I have conditions, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. Name them. I want my own room, my own space. This stays business, no expectations beyond what we present publicly. Agreed. And when this is over, when you're done using me for whatever game you're playing, I walk away clean. No strings, no obligations, no suddenly being implicated in whatever illegal shit you're running. Victor was quiet for a moment. You understand what you're agreeing to, Ethan? This isn't a game you can quit halfway through. Once we announce this, once you step into my world, there's no going back to your old life. My old life just fucked my best friend, I said. I'm ready for a new one. Then we have a deal. I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. Be here tomorrow at 8 a.m. Bring whatever you want to keep from your apartment. Everything else we'll provide. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there in my car, phone still pressed to my ear, and waited to feel something. Regret. Fear. Second thoughts. But all I felt was cold, clear certainty. Claire had made her choice. Marcus had made his, and now I was making mine. If they wanted to destroy me, fine. I'd let them. But I'd rise from those ashes wearing designer suits and a wedding ring that cost more than their combined annual salaries. I'd become exactly what they never thought I could be. I'd become untouchable. The next morning, I showed up at the Caldwell estate with 2 duffel bags and a hangover that felt like divine punishment. Victor met me at the door himself, looking immaculate in a suit that probably cost more than my car. Second thoughts? He asked. Too late for those. He smiled. Actually smiled, something almost resembling approval in his eyes. Good. Follow me. The mansion looked different in daylight, less ominous, more obscene. He led me through halls lined with art I'd only seen in museums, past rooms bigger than most people's entire homes, until we reached the east wing. You're sweet, Victor said, opening double doors onto a space that made my entire apartment look like a closet. Bedroom, bathroom, office, sitting room. Your own entrance if you prefer privacy. I'm in the west wing. We'll share common spaces as needed for appearances. I walked in, dropped my bags on a bed that could sleep 4 people comfortably. Through the windows, I could see the gardens, the pool, the edge of the property that seemed to stretch forever. There's a stylist coming at noon, Victor continued. You'll need a new wardrobe. Tomorrow, we'll visit my lawyer to handle the legal arrangements, prenup, power of attorney, various documents. The gala is Saturday. That gives us 4 days to make this convincing. Convincing how? He moved to stand beside me at the window. We need a story. How we met. Why we fell in love. The kind of details that make people believe this isn't exactly what it is. Which is a calculated arrangement between 2 people who both have something to gain. Victor turned to look at me. But the world can't know that. They need to see romance, passion, a whirlwind courtship that explains why a man my age is marrying someone your age after knowing them for mere weeks. Weeks? We met 6 weeks ago at a private art gallery showing, Victor said smoothly. You were there with Claire, I was there alone. We struck up a conversation about a Monet. I found you fascinating. We began seeing each other in secret, late-night dinners, private meetings. The attraction was immediate and undeniable. He made it sound so easy, like rewriting reality was just another business transaction. And what about Claire, Marcus? They know I just found out about them last night. Which makes our announcement even more devastating. Victor's smile was cold. You were so heartbroken by her betrayal that you sought comfort in the arms of the one person who understood, the one person who'd been waiting for you all along. It's tragic, romantic, completely believable. It's bullshit. It's survival. He moved toward the door. In my world, Ethan, Perception is everything. The truth is whatever story people believe. And by Saturday night, everyone at that gala will believe we're madly in love. And if they don't? Victor paused in the doorway, looked back at me with something dark in his eyes. Then we make them believe, whatever it takes. The door closed behind him, leaving me alone in a room bigger than any space I'd ever called mine. I sat on the edge of that massive bed, surrounded by luxury I hadn't earned, and tried to figure out what the hell I'd just agreed to. My phone buzzed. Claire again. Please talk to me. I know you're hurt, but we can fix this. I blocked her number. Then Marcus's. Then everyone else who might try to reach me, try to explain, try to make me understand how this was somehow not their fault. I didn't want understanding. I wanted them to hurt the way I was hurting. I wanted them to feel small and insignificant and utterly destroyed. And if that made me a bad person, if that made me as cold and calculating as the man I'd just agreed to marry, then so be it. I'd been good my whole life. Time to see what happened when I chose to be something else. The stylist turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia, who took one look at me and said, "Well, at least you have good bone structure. Everything else we can fix." She spent 3 hours draping me in fabrics, taking measurements, making notes on a tablet while muttering things like, "Definitely need to broaden the shoulders," and "Who taught him to dress? A clearance rack." By the time she was done, I felt like I'd been filed down and rebuilt. She left with promises of delivery by Friday, and I was alone again. Victor found me in the library that evening, staring at books I'd never read by authors I barely recognized. "Dinner's ready," he said. I followed him to a dining room with a table that could seat 20, though only 2 places were set, one at the head, one to the right. He sat without ceremony, and I did the same. A staff member I hadn't met appeared with plates of food that looked like art. I picked up my fork, suddenly aware that I probably didn't know which utensil to use for what. Victor noticed. "Outside in. Work your way toward the plate." I didn't agree to etiquette lessons. "You agreed to be my husband. That comes with expectations." He cut into whatever he was eating with practiced precision. "People will be watching, Ethan, judging, looking for any sign that this is a fraud. You need to fit in my world seamlessly enough that no one questions your presence in it. Your world is built on crime and violence. I'm supposed to just accept that? You're supposed to accept that your presence in it protects you from it." Victor met my eyes across the table. "My enemies won't care about your innocence. They'll see you as leverage, as a weakness to exploit. You need to learn how to survive here, or you'll end up as collateral damage." The food turned to ash in my mouth. "You said this was safe." "I said this was safer than being alone and vulnerable. There's a difference." He set down his fork. "I won't lie to you, Ethan. This life is dangerous. But you're safer with me than you were in your apartment with a broken heart and no protection." "Protection from what?" Victor was quiet for a long moment. "From the people who might want to hurt you to get to me. From the people who might see you as an easy target for information. From the people who don't care about collateral damage as long as they achieve their goals." Jesus Christ. "You can still walk away," Victor said. "Right now, before Saturday, before this becomes real." I should have grabbed my bags and run, but the thought of going back to that empty apartment, to that life where Claire's betrayal would follow me everywhere, where I'd see Marcus at work and have to pretend I was fine. "I'm not walking away," I said. Victor nodded, like he'd expected that answer. "Then starting tomorrow, you'll begin training, self-defense, situational awareness, how to recognize threats before they become fatal." "You're serious." "I'm practical." He resumed eating. "And if you're going to survive in my world, you need to be too." That night, lying in a bed too big and too comfortable, I stared at the ceiling and wondered what version of myself I'd wake up as. The Ethan who believed in love and happy endings was dead, buried under silk sheets in a mansion built on blood money. Whoever emerged on Saturday night would be something new, something harder, something that could stand beside Victor Caldwell and not flinch. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. Patricia returned with racks of clothing, each piece more expensive than anything I'd owned in my life. A man named James appeared to teach me the basics of self-defense, leaving me bruised and exhausted. Victor's lawyer, a severe woman named Ms. Chen, presented me with a prenup that basically said I'd get nothing if I betrayed Victor, but a comfortable sum if I fulfilled my obligations. I signed without reading it thoroughly. What was the point? I was already all in. Friday evening, Victor found me in my suite, staring at the suit I'd wear tomorrow. Black, perfectly tailored, with a subtle sheen that caught the light. "Ready?" he asked. "No." He stepped into the room, closed the door behind him. Last chance to back out. "Why do you keep offering me exits?" "Because I need to know you're committed, that you won't break when things get difficult." Victor moved to stand beside me, both of us looking at that suit like it was a uniform. "Tomorrow, you become my husband in the eyes of everyone who matters. That's not a role you can half-ass." "I know." "Do you?" He turned to face me fully. "Because once we walk into that gala tomorrow, once I put a ring on your finger and announce our engagement, there's no taking it back. You'll be tied to me, to my reputation, to my life. People will judge you, hate you. Some will want to destroy you just because you exist in my orbit." "Sounds familiar," I said. "Claire destroyed me just because I loved her." Victor studied me for a long moment. "That's why this works. You're not doing this for love. You're doing this for revenge. And revenge, unlike love, doesn't disappoint." "Is that what your life's taught you?" "That's what experience teaches everyone eventually." He moved toward the door. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be brutal." He left, and I was alone with my thoughts and that perfect suit. I tried it on one more time, looked at myself in the floor-length mirror. The man staring back looked like someone I didn't recognize. Sharper, colder, more dangerous. I liked him better than the fool who'd climbed those stairs with champagne and hope. Saturday arrived gray and threatening, like the sky knew what was coming. I woke early, showered, and dressed with mechanical precision. By the time Victor knocked on my door at 6 p.m., I was ready. He looked devastating in a dark suit, silver cufflinks catching the light. In his hand was a small box. "Your ring," he said, opening it to reveal a platinum band set with a single black diamond. "People will expect you to be wearing it when we arrive." I took the box, slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, heavy and foreign. "Yours?" I asked. He showed me his left hand, an identical band already in place. "We match. How romantic." The drive to the gala was silent. Victor's driver navigated through streets I barely saw, while I tried to remember how to breathe. This was it, the point of no return. In an hour, everyone I knew would learn that I'd moved on from Claire in the most spectacular way possible. The venue was a museum downtown, all marble columns and soaring ceilings. We pulled up to a red carpet lined with photographers, society reporters, people whose entire job was documenting who mattered. "Ready?" Victor asked. "No." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He opened the door, stepped out into a flash of cameras. Then he turned, extended his hand to me. "Trust me." I took it. Let him pull me from the car into a wall of light and noise. Cameras clicked frantically. Someone shouted Victor's name. He ignored them all, kept his hand in mine as we walked up the steps. At the top, he paused, turned to me. And then, with every camera pointed at us, he leaned in and pressed his lips to mine. The kiss was brief, chaste, completely for show, but the message was clear. We walked inside together, and I felt the exact moment Claire saw us, felt her shock ripple across the room like a physical thing. Marcus stood beside her, his face going white. Victor guided me through the crowd, his hand never leaving mine, introducing me to people whose names I'd only seen in headlines. "This is Ethan," he'd say, "my fiancé." The word felt like a blade every time, sharp, cutting, perfect. We were halfway through the room when Claire found her voice. "Dad, what the hell is this?" Victor turned and his smile could have frozen oceans. "Claire, I was hoping you'd be here." He pulled me closer. "Ethan and I have an announcement to make." "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." He raised his voice, drawing the attention of everyone nearby. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you all to Ethan Hale, the man I'm going to marry." The room exploded into whispers. I watched Claire's face shatter, watched Marcus stumble backward like he'd been shot. Victor's arm wrapped around my waist, solid and possessive. 3 weeks from today," Victor continued, "at the cathedral downtown. You're all invited to witness the beginning of our life together. Someone started clapping, then someone else. Within seconds, the entire room erupted in applause, and all I could do was stand there with Victor's ring on my finger and watch my old life burn to the ground. Claire pushed through the crowd, Marcus trailing behind her. "You can't do this," she hissed. "This is insane." "Congratulations on your relationship with Marcus," Victor said pleasantly. "I understand you've been together for several months now." Her face went pale. "How did you—" "I know everything that happens in my house, Claire, including what happens in the guest bedrooms." His smile never wavered. "Ethan was devastated when he discovered your betrayal. Fortunately, I was there to comfort him, to show him what real devotion looks like." "This is revenge," Marcus said, finding his voice. "You're doing this to punish us." Victor looked at him like he was something stuck to his shoe. "I'm doing this because I've found someone worth protecting, something you clearly never learned how to do." He turned us away, leaving them standing there in a crowd of curious onlookers. As we walked, I caught fragments of conversation. "So sudden. Knew he was single, but Ethan who?" "Smile," Victor murmured in my ear. "You're madly in love, remember?" I smiled. Let him lead me through the rest of the gala, playing the role of devoted fiancé while my old life imploded behind us. Every time I caught Claire's eye, I saw the devastation I'd felt standing in that doorway. Every time Marcus looked our way, I felt a dark satisfaction that made me wonder who I was becoming. By the time we left, the story was already spreading. Victor Caldwell, notorious and untouchable, had fallen in love with a nobody. It was romantic, scandalous, completely unbelievable, and no one suspected the truth. In the car, Victor released my hand for the first time all night. "You did well." "I feel sick." "That's normal. The first time you perform, the adrenaline makes you nauseous." He poured 2 glasses from the bar in the back of the car, handed me one. "Drink. It helps." I drank. The liquor burned, but he was right. It helped. "Claire will try to reach you," Victor said. "So will Marcus, probably your family, your old friends, everyone who can't believe what you've done." "What do I tell them?" "Nothing." He finished his drink. "Let them wonder, let them speculate. The less you explain, the more real this becomes." We pulled up to the estate. Inside, the silence felt heavy, weighted with everything that had just happened. Victor walked me to my suite, paused at the door. "You should know," he said quietly, "I meant what I said in there, about protecting you. It was an act. The engagement is an act. The protection is real." His eyes held mine. "You're mine now, Ethan. That means anyone who wants to hurt you has to go through me first." The possessiveness in his voice should have scared me. Instead, it felt like the first honest thing anyone had said to me in months. "Get some rest," Victor said. "Next week, the real work begins." He left, and I stood in my suite, staring at the ring on my finger. 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, I'd marry a man I barely knew for reasons that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with pain. My phone buzzed. I'd forgotten to turn it off. Messages flooded in. Claire, Marcus, people I hadn't spoken to in years. All of them demanding answers, explanations, proof that I hadn't lost my mind. I turned it off. Let them wonder. Let them hurt the way I'd hurt. I'd made my choice. Now I'd live with the consequences, whatever they turned out to be. The wedding happened 3 weeks later on a Tuesday morning that felt too bright for what was essentially a business transaction. Ethan stood in front of a mirror in a room at the cathedral, adjusting his tie for the 5th time while his hands refused to stop shaking. "You look like you're about to pass out," said a voice from the doorway. Ethan turned to find a girl watching him, maybe 8 or 9, with dark hair pulled into braids and Victor's exact shade of gray eyes. She wore a white dress and held a basket of flower petals, like she was carrying a weapon. "Who are you?" Ethan asked. "Lily, Victor's daughter, the one who actually lives with him." She walked into the room, set the basket down, and studied him with the kind of assessment that reminded him uncomfortably of her father. "You're really marrying him?" "That's the plan." "Why?" The bluntness of it caught him off guard. "Because I want to." "Liar." She tilted her head. "Claire says you're doing this to hurt her. Marcus says you've lost your mind. The staff says Victor paid you. What do you say? Lily shrugged. I say nobody marries Victor unless they're getting something out of it. So what are you getting? Smart kid, too smart. Ethan crouched down to her level. Your father offered me protection. A new life. A chance to be someone different than who I was. And what were you? Someone people walked all over. She considered this, then nodded like it made sense. Okay, but if you hurt him, I'll tell Marcus where you sleep. And Marcus knows people who make people disappear. I thought Marcus worked in investment banking. He does, but he also works for Victor doing the stuff that needs to disappear from spreadsheets. She picked up her basket. Welcome to the family, I guess. Try not to die. She left before he could respond. Ethan straightened, looked at himself in the mirror again. The man staring back wore a Tom Ford suit and a platinum ring and an expression that suggested he might actually vomit. A knock on the door. Ms. Chen entered carrying a leather folder. Final documents. The marriage license, amended prenup, power of attorney in case of emergency. Sign here, here, and here. Ethan signed. Each signature felt like sealing a contract with something he didn't fully understand. One more thing, Ms. Chen said, pulling out a small box. From Victor. He said you'd need it. Inside was a watch. Patek Philippe, probably worth more than Ethan's entire education. A note tucked beneath it read, Don't be late. V. Ethan put it on. The weight of it felt like a shackle. The ceremony was private, just Victor's inner circle, a few business associates, and enough witnesses to make it legal. No one from Ethan's old life. No one who might ask questions he couldn't answer. Victor stood at the altar in a charcoal suit, looking calm in a way that should have been reassuring but just made Ethan more nervous. When their eyes met, Victor's expression didn't change. No warmth, no reassurance. Just that calculating gaze that missed nothing. The officiant spoke words Ethan barely heard, something about love and commitment and joining two lives. All lies, prettily packaged. When it came time for the vows, Victor's voice was steady, mechanical. I take you, Ethan, to be my lawfully wedded husband. Ethan's voice cracked on the same words. He saw something flicker in Victor's expression, not quite concern, but close. The rings. They'd already been wearing them for weeks, but Victor made a show of removing his, sliding it back on with deliberate care. Ethan did the same, his fingers clumsy. I now pronounce you married. You may kiss. Victor's hand cupped the back of Ethan's neck, pulled him in for a kiss that was slightly less performative than the one at the gala. When they separated, applause echoed through the cathedral. Ethan felt like he might throw up. The reception was held at the estate. Ethan moved through it in a haze, shaking hands with men who looked at him like they were calculating his market value, accepting congratulations from women who called him brave in a tone that suggested they meant something else entirely. Claire hadn't been invited. Neither had Marcus. Their absence was a statement, you betrayed me, so you don't get to witness what came after. Smile more, Victor murmured during their first dance, his hand firm on Ethan's waist. You look miserable. I am miserable. Then pretend you're not. That's what I pay you for. The words stung more than they should have. I'm not a prostitute. No, you're my husband, which means your misery reflects on me. Victor's grip tightened slightly. We have an agreement, Ethan. Hold up your end. So Ethan smiled, laughed at appropriate moments, played the role of the besotted newlywed while his stomach churned and his head pounded. By the time the last guest left, he was running on fumes and spite. Victor found him in the library around midnight, tie loosened, jacket discarded. You survived. Barely. That's all that matters. Victor poured 2 drinks, handed one over. Tomorrow, things return to normal. You'll have your space, I'll have mine. We'll coordinate schedules for public appearances, but otherwise you're free to do what you want. What I want is to know what I've actually gotten myself into. Victor sat down, studied him over the rim of his glass. You want the truth? I want to know why you really married me. Because I don't buy the whole creating confusion for your enemies thing. You could have hired an actor for that. An actor can quit. A husband is legally bound. Victor swirled his drink. You want to know what you've gotten into, Ethan? You've married a man who runs half this city's underground economy. drugs, weapons, information. If it's illegal and profitable, I have my fingers in it. I've killed people, ordered deaths, ruined lives because it was good business. The casual way he said it made Ethan's blood run cold. Jesus Christ. You knew what I was. You just didn't want to think about specifics. Victor leaned forward. But here's what you need to understand. I protect what's mine. And as of today, you're mine. That ring on your finger makes you untouchable to anyone who values their life. It also makes you a target for anyone stupid enough to think you're a weakness. So which am I, protected or targeted? Both. Welcome to my world. Ethan drained his glass. I should have walked away. But you didn't. Because deep down, you wanted this. Wanted the power, the protection, the ability to hurt the people who hurt you. Victor's smile was cold. Don't pretend you're innocent in this, Ethan. You chose revenge. Now you get to live with what that means. The first month of marriage was an exercise in careful distance. They shared meals occasionally, appeared together at necessary events, maintained the fiction for anyone watching. But behind closed doors, they were strangers sharing a house. Ethan spent his days exploring the estate, discovering rooms he hadn't known existed, a gym, a shooting range, a panic room disguised as a wine cellar. He met more of Victor's staff, learned their names and routines. The cook, Mrs. Patterson, took pity on him and started making sure he ate. The head of security, a man named Dmitri, began teaching him advanced self-defense. You're getting better, Dmitri said after Ethan managed to land a solid hit during sparring. Faster. Still can't beat you. Not yet, but you will. Dmitri reset his stance. Again. Lily became an unexpected companion. She'd appear in the library while Ethan was reading, curl up in a chair with her own book, and they'd exist in comfortable silence. Sometimes she'd ask questions about his life before, about what he missed, about whether he regretted it. Do you? She asked one afternoon. Do I what? Regret marrying Victor. Ethan set down his book. I don't know yet. Ask me in a year. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. She accepted this with the wisdom of someone who'd learned young that adults rarely had good answers. He's different since you came. Different how? Less angry, less, she searched for the word. Less empty. Ethan didn't know what to do with that information. Victor didn't seem different to him. Still cold, still calculating, still someone who treated emotions like weaknesses to exploit. But then small things started happening. Victor began asking if Ethan wanted coffee in the morning, started sitting in the library after dinner, reading in the chair across from Ethan's, started touching him in ways that weren't for show, a hand on his shoulder in passing, fingers brushing his arm during conversation. You're staring, Victor said one night, not looking up from his book. I'm trying to figure you out. Good luck. I've been trying for 53 years. Ethan closed his own book. Why did you really marry me, Victor? I told you. Bullshit. You told me what you thought I needed to hear. I want the real reason. Victor finally looked up, and something in his expression was almost vulnerable. Because I'm tired of being alone. Because everyone in my life wants something from me. Money, power, protection. You wanted revenge. That felt honest. And now? Now I have a husband who looks at me like I'm a puzzle instead of a meal ticket. It's refreshing. The honesty of it caught Ethan off guard. I don't know what we're doing here. Neither do I. Victor stood, moved to the window. I've never been married for real. The first one was arranged, ended in divorce. The second one died in a car accident that may or may not have been meant for me. This is the first time I've chosen someone. You chose me for revenge. I chose you because you were breakable enough to need me, but strong enough to survive me. That's rarer than you think. Before Ethan could respond, Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. I have to go. Don't wait up. He left without explanation. Ethan sat there, alone in the library, and wondered what kind of business required Victor's attention at 11 p.m. He found out 3 hours later when Victor returned covered in blood. Ethan was still awake, couldn't sleep, had been pacing his suite when he heard the commotion downstairs. He found Victor in the foyer, Dmitri supporting him, Mrs. Patterson already rushing for the medical kit. What the hell happened? Ethan demanded. Business meeting gone wrong, Victor said through gritted teeth. A gash across his forehead was bleeding freely. Nothing serious. You're covered in blood. Most of it isn't mine. That should have made Ethan feel better. It didn't. He pushed past Dimitri, grabbed Victor's arm. Hospital, now. No hospitals. They ask questions. Then we handle it here. Ethan looked at Mrs. Patterson. You know how to stitch? She nodded, already laying out supplies. Ethan helped Victor to a chair, started removing his ruined shirt. Bruises were already forming across his ribs, dark and ugly. You should see the other guy, Victor joked weakly. Is he alive? Depends on your definition. Mrs. Patterson worked quickly, cleaning wounds, applying butterfly bandages where she could, stitching where she couldn't. Victor didn't flinch, didn't make a sound. Just watched Ethan with an expression that might have been curiosity. You don't have to stay, Victor said. Shut up. I mean it. This isn't your problem. You made it my problem when you put this ring on my finger. Ethan met his eyes. You said you protect what's yours. Well, you're mine too, so shut up and let me help. Something shifted in Victor's expression. When Mrs. Patterson finished, Ethan helped him upstairs into Victor's suite that he had never actually entered before. It was similar to his own but darker, more austere. The bed was massive, the curtains heavy. I can take it from here, Victor said. Like hell. Ethan guided him to the bed, helped him lie down. What happened? Really? Victor closed his eyes. Rival syndicate thought they could muscle in on my territory. Sent their best guy to deliver a message. I delivered one back. By beating him nearly to death? By reminding them why people fear me. Victor's eyes opened, found Ethan's. This is what I am, Ethan. Violence wrapped in expensive suits. If you can't handle that, you should leave. But Ethan didn't leave. He sat on the edge of the bed, looked at this man he'd married, bloodied, brutal, and somehow vulnerable in a way that made Ethan's chest ache. I'm not going anywhere, he said quietly. You should. Well, I'm not. Ethan stood, grabbed a blanket from the chair. I'm staying here tonight to make sure you don't die or do something stupid. Both are distinct possibilities. Then it's good I'm here. He settled into the chair beside the bed, wrapped the blanket around himself. Victor watched him for a long moment, then closed his eyes. Thank you, Victor murmured. Ethan didn't respond. Just sat there in the dark, listening to Victor's breathing even out, and tried to figure out when exactly this stopped being about revenge and started being about something else entirely. He woke to sunlight and the sound of Lily screaming. Ethan bolted from the chair, disoriented, finding Lily standing in the doorway with tears streaming down her face. She was staring at Victor, who was still in bed, still covered in dried blood and bruises. He's fine, Ethan said quickly, moving to intercept her. Lily, he's okay. He's bleeding. It looks worse than it is, I promise. Ethan crouched down. Hey, look at me. He's fine. Just some cuts and bruises. Victor's voice rough from sleep. Lily. She pushed past Ethan, climbed onto the bed with no regard for Victor's injuries. He winced, but wrapped his arms around her anyway. I'm okay, sweetheart. Just had a rough night. You promised you'd be careful. I was careful. The other guy was just less careful than me. She pulled back, wiped her eyes, then turned to glare at Ethan. You were supposed to keep him safe. I'm not a miracle worker. You're his husband. That's your job. Victor made a sound that might have been a laugh. She's not wrong. Ethan looked between them, Victor bruised and bloody, Lily fierce and protective, and felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't just a business arrangement anymore. Somewhere along the way, these people had become his responsibility, his family, in the most dysfunctional way possible. I'll try harder next time, Ethan said. Lily seemed satisfied with that. She kissed Victor's cheek, told him he was stupid, and left to get ready for school. Ethan helped Victor to the bathroom, ran a bath, tried not to stare at the full extent of the damage. You should see a real doctor, Ethan said. I've survived worse. That's not reassuring. Victor lowered himself into the water with a hiss. You didn't have to stay last night. I know. But you did anyway. Yeah. Why? Ethan sat on the edge of the tub. Because despite everything, despite knowing what you are and what you do, I didn't want you to be alone. Victor was quiet for a long moment. I don't understand you. Join the club. I don't understand me either anymore. Ethan stood. I'll have Mrs. Patterson bring up breakfast. Try not to bleed on anything expensive. He left before Victor could respond, made his way back to his own suite. In the mirror, he looked exhausted, rumpled, nothing like the polished person he'd been pretending to be. But he also looked different, less lost. Like maybe he was starting to figure out who he was in this new life. The realization should have scared him. Instead, it felt like relief. Over the next 2 weeks, things shifted. Victor recovered, slower than he wanted, but faster than Ethan expected. They fell into new routines, breakfast together, Victor teaching Ethan the basics of his business empire, dinners where they actually talked instead of just coexisting. You're good with numbers, Victor observed one night, reviewing a spreadsheet Ethan had put together. Where'd you learn this? College, finance degree that I'd never really used. You should use it now. Help me with the legitimate side of things. I need someone I can trust to manage the clean businesses. You trust me? Victor looked up from the spreadsheet. You stayed when I was bleeding. You didn't run when you saw what I really am. Yeah, I trust you. It shouldn't have meant as much as it did, but Ethan felt something warm unfurl in his chest, something dangerous and complicated. Okay, he said, I'll help. Marcus tried to contact Ethan exactly once. A letter delivered to the estate, full of apologies and explanations that Ethan burned without reading all the way through. Claire made the mistake of showing up at the gate, demanding to see him. Security turned her away. Ethan watched from a window and felt nothing. Revenge, it turned out, was a dish best served by simply not caring anymore. But complications were inevitable. They came in the form of a black SUV that pulled up to the estate one morning while Ethan was having coffee in the garden. 4 men got out. Expensive suits, expensive guns. Dimitri appeared instantly, weapon drawn, but the lead man held up his hands. We're here to talk. Tell Victor that Constantine wants a meeting. Dimitri's expression went cold. Not happening. Tell him it's about his new husband, about how vulnerable he is, about how easy it would be to make him disappear. Ethan stood, coffee cup forgotten. I'm right here. If you want to threaten me, do it to my face. The man smiled. Brave. Stupid, but brave. Tell Victor we'll be in touch. They left. Dimitri immediately got on his phone, and within minutes, Victor was striding into the garden, fury radiating from him. What did they say? Ethan repeated it. Watched Victor's expression go from anger to something colder, more dangerous. Pack a bag, Victor said. You're leaving the city for a few days. Like hell. This isn't negotiable, Ethan. Constantine is... Victor stopped, ran a hand through his hair. He's dangerous. If he's targeting you, I need you somewhere safe until I handle this. So handle it with me here. I can't protect you and deal with him at the same time. Then teach me to protect myself better. But I'm not running. Ethan moved closer. You said I'm yours. That means we face this together. Victor stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. You don't understand what you're asking. Then explain it to me. Stop treating me like I'm fragile and tell me what we're actually dealing with. The silence stretched. Then Victor made a decision. Inside. Now. In Victor's office, he pulled out a file, laid it on the desk. Photos of a man with cold eyes and a scarred face. Konstantin Volkov. He runs the Russian syndicate, Victor said. We've had an uneasy peace for years. But he's been pushing boundaries, testing defenses, and now he knows about you. What does he want? Leverage, a way to hurt me. You're the first person I've cared about in years, and he knows it. The admission hung between them. Ethan processed it, the weight of Victor's care feeling heavier than the threat. So what do we do? Victor's smile was sharp, deadly. We remind him why it's a mistake to threaten what's mine. The plan was brutal and efficient. Victor called a meeting, neutral ground, just the 2 syndicate heads. Ethan insisted on being there. Victor refused. They fought about it for hours until finally Victor agreed, with conditions. You stay in the car. You don't show yourself unless I signal. And if things go wrong, you run. Understood? Understood. The meeting was in a warehouse on the edge of the city. Ethan sat in the back of the SUV with Dmitri, watching through tinted windows as Victor walked in alone. Minutes ticked by. Then shouting, then gunfire. Dmitri swore, reached for his weapon, but Ethan grabbed his arm. "Wait," he said, "if things go wrong." "They haven't gone wrong yet." More gunfire. Then silence. Ethan's heart was hammering. Every instinct screamed to run, to get out, to save himself. But he stayed. Waited. Victor emerged covered in blood again. Definitely not his this time. And Constantine was being dragged out by his own men, alive but badly beaten. "Message delivered," Victor said, sliding into the car. He looked at Ethan. "You stayed." "You're my husband. Where else would I be?" Something in Victor's expression cracked. He pulled Ethan close, kissed him hard, not for show, not for performance, but real. Desperate and fierce and completely unexpected. When they separated, Ethan was breathing hard. What was that for? For staying. For not running when you had every reason to. Victor's hand cupped his face. "I need you to understand something. This life, this world, it's going to keep coming at you, keep trying to break you, and I can protect you from most of it, but not all of it." "I know." "And you're staying anyway?" "I'm staying anyway." Victor kissed him again, softer this time, and Ethan kissed back, tasting blood and danger and something that felt terrifyingly close to love. The kidnapping attempt happened on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after the wedding that had made headlines across the city. Ethan was leaving the downtown office building where Victor had set him up with a consulting position, more for appearances than actual work, when the van pulled up alongside him. He'd gotten sloppy. That's what James would say later, during the debrief that felt more like a lecture. 3 weeks of marriage had made Ethan comfortable, made him forget that the ring on his finger was as much a target as it was a symbol. The side door slid open. 2 men jumped out before Ethan could react, before the training James had drilled into him could kick in. One grabbed his arm, the other his shoulder, and they were hauling him toward the van when a voice cut through the parking garage. "Touch him again, and I'll cut your fucking hands off." The men froze. Ethan twisted in their grip to see Victor standing 20 feet away, flanked by 4 men Ethan had never seen before. No guns visible, but the threat was clear in every line of Victor's body. "Mr. Caldwell," one of the kidnappers said, trying for casual and failing. "This is just business. Dmitri wants to talk. He figured your husband would be good leverage." "Dmitri figured wrong." Victor took a step forward. His men moved with him, synchronized and lethal. "You have 3 seconds to release him. After that, I stop being reasonable. We have our orders. 2 seconds." The hands on Ethan loosened slightly. He could feel the kidnappers' uncertainty, could practically taste their fear. They'd expected an easy grab, a negotiation. They hadn't expected Victor to be there. 1. They let go. Ethan stumbled forward, and one of Victor's men caught him, steadied him. Victor never looked away from the kidnappers. "Tell Dmitri," Victor said, his voice dropping to something cold and final, "that if he wants to talk, he calls me directly. He doesn't touch what's mine. He doesn't threaten what's mine. And he sure as hell doesn't send amateurs to grab my husband in broad daylight. It was just, get out of my sight before I change my mind about letting you walk away." They scrambled back into the van. Tires squealed as they peeled out of the garage, leaving the smell of burnt rubber and Ethan's hammering pulse. Victor crossed the space between them in 3 strides, hands gripping Ethan's shoulders. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm—" Ethan's voice shook. "I'm fine." "You're not fine, you're in shock." Victor's hands moved to Ethan's face, tilting it up to check for injuries. "Did they hurt you at all? Even a scratch?" "No." "You got here before—" Ethan stopped, actually processed what had happened. "How did you know where I was?" Victor's expression shifted, something almost guilty flickering across his features. "You have a tracker in your phone, and your watch, and sewn into the lining of your jacket." "You're tracking me?" "I'm protecting you." Victor's hands dropped. "This is exactly why. You think Dmitri is the only one who sees you as leverage? You're married to me, Ethan. That makes you a target for every enemy I have." The garage felt too small suddenly, too exposed. Ethan's legs were shaking. "I need to sit down." "Car." Now! Victor guided him toward a black SUV Ethan hadn't noticed, one of his men opening the door. Once they were both inside, Victor poured something from a flask, pressed it into Ethan's hands. Drink. Ethan drank. Cognac, expensive and burning. It helped. Who's Dimitri? He asked when he could speak without his voice breaking. Competition. He runs the East Side territories, thinks he can expand into my areas. Victor took the flask back, took a drink himself. He's been pushing boundaries for months. This was him testing how far he could go. By trying to kidnap me. By trying to take something I value to see if I'd negotiate. Victor's jaw clenched. He just learned I don't negotiate when it comes to you. The possessiveness in his voice still caught Ethan off guard, even after 3 weeks of marriage. They lived in separate wings of the mansion, maintained their arrangement with professional distance. But moments like this, moments when Victor's control slipped and something rawer showed through, reminded Ethan that lines were blurring in ways neither of them had planned. What happens now? Ethan asked. Now I make sure everyone in this city understands that you're untouchable. Victor pulled out his phone, started typing. And Dimitri learns what happens when you cross me. The retaliation came swiftly and brutally. Ethan heard about it in pieces over the next week. Dimitri's shipments seized, his operations raided, his men arrested or disappeared. Victor never discussed it directly, but the news reports painted a picture of a territory war that Dimitri was losing badly. Then came the night Victor showed up at Ethan's suite at 2 a.m, suit jacket missing, blood on his shirt. Ethan jerked awake at the knock, stumbled to the door in just sleep pants. What happened? Not my blood, Victor said immediately. Dimitri tried to hit one of my warehouses. We were waiting. He walked past Ethan into the suite, headed straight for the bathroom. I need to clean up before Lily sees me in the morning. Lily, Victor's daughter. Ethan had met her twice since the wedding, a quiet 10-year-old with her father's dark hair and her late mother's sad eyes. She lived in the mansion's north wing with her nanny, carefully shielded from Victor's world. Is it over? Ethan followed Victor to the bathroom, watched him strip off the ruined shirt. There were bruises blooming across his ribs, a cut on his shoulder that looked deep. It's contained. Victor turned on the shower, started to unbuckle his belt, then paused, looked at Ethan. You should go back to bed. You're bleeding. I've had worse. That doesn't mean you should handle it alone. Ethan grabbed the first aid kit from under the sink. He'd learned where it was kept after James's training sessions left him bruised and aching. Shower first, then let me look at the cut. Victor studied him for a long moment, then nodded. 5 minutes. Ethan waited in the bedroom, trying not to think about the fact that his husband was naked in the next room, washing blood that wasn't his from skin Ethan had barely touched outside of public appearances. They'd kissed exactly 4 times since the wedding, all for cameras, all carefully staged. The shower cut off. Victor emerged in a towel, hair damp, the cut on his shoulder still seeping. He sat on the edge of Ethan's bed without being asked, and Ethan moved behind him with the kit. This is going to sting, Ethan warned. I've been shot twice. I can handle antiseptic. Ethan cleaned the wound anyway, careful and methodical. Victor's breathing stayed even, controlled. Up close like this, Ethan could see the scars, some old, some newer, evidence of a life lived violently. Dimitri won't stop, Victor said quietly. Not until one of us is dead. Because of me. Because of his pride. You were just the excuse he used. Victor turned his head slightly, enough to catch Ethan's eye. But I meant what I said. You're under my protection. That doesn't end just because the threat escalates. Even though this whole thing is fake? The word hung between them. Victor was quiet while Ethan finished bandaging the cut. Quiet while he closed the first aid kit. Quiet until Ethan sat beside him on the bed. Is it? Victor asked finally. Still feel fake to you? Ethan thought about the tracker in his phone, the way Victor's hands had felt on his face in that parking garage, checking for injuries. The fact that they were sitting on Ethan's bed at 2 a.m. with a kind of intimacy that went beyond their arrangement. I don't know what this is anymore, Ethan admitted. Neither do I. Victor stood, towel still wrapped around his waist. But I know I'm not letting anyone take you. Arrangement or not, that's real enough. He left before Ethan could respond, disappearing through the door that connected their suites, a door Ethan hadn't realized existed until that moment. Sleep didn't come easy after that. 2 days later, Claire showed up at the mansion. Ethan was in the garden with Lily, watching her draw in a sketchbook while he pretended to read, when Claire's voice cut through the afternoon quiet. "I need to talk to you." Lily looked up, pencil frozen mid-stroke. She'd seen Claire at the wedding, had been polite and distant in the way children are when they don't understand what's happening but know it's important. "Lily," Ethan said gently, "why don't you go find Marcus? I think he's in the kitchen." Not that Marcus. The estate's head of security. A different Marcus who'd found Lily's shy questions about his job endearing. She gathered her things without argument, shot Claire one unreadable look, and left. Once she was gone, Ethan set his book aside. "How did you get past security?" "I'm still his daughter. They let me on the property." Claire sat on the bench across from him, and Ethan was struck by how tired she looked. Dark circles under her eyes, hair less perfect than usual. "Please, just 5 minutes." "You have 3. She flinched. "You've changed." "People do. Usually when their girlfriend fucks their best friend." Ethan kept his voice level, emotionless. James would be proud. "What do you want, Claire?" "To understand. This whole thing with my father, it's not real, is it? You're just doing this to hurt me." "Everything's not about you." "Then what's it about?" Claire leaned forward, desperate. "Money? Power? Because if that's what you want, I can help. We can still—" "We can't still anything." Ethan stood. "You made your choice. I made mine. That's the end of it." "You don't love him." "I didn't love you either." The lie came easily now. "I just didn't realize it until I saw what you really were." Claire's face crumpled. "That's not true. We were happy." "You were happy. I was convenient." Ethan started walking toward the house. "Your 3 minutes are up." "He's using you," Claire called after him. "My father doesn't care about anyone but himself. Whatever he promised you, whatever he's making you believe, it's all manipulation. That's what he does." Ethan stopped, turned back. "Maybe. But at least he's honest about it. You pretended to love me while you were fucking someone else. I'll take honest manipulation over that any day." He left her standing in the garden, walked back into the mansion that had started to feel less like a prison and more like a fortress. His fortress. One that kept people like Claire and Marcus and everyone who'd ever underestimated him firmly on the outside. Victor found him an hour later in the library, staring at a book without reading it. "Claire's still on the property," Victor said. "Security says she's been sitting in the garden crying for 45 minutes. Should I have her removed?" "She'll leave eventually." Victor sat across from him, studied Ethan's face. "What did she want?" "To convince me you're using me, that this is all manipulation." "And what did you tell her?" Ethan finally looked up from the book. "That I prefer honest manipulation to loving lies." Something flickered in Victor's expression, approval mixed with something else. "Careful, Ethan. Keep talking like that, and people will think you actually like being married to me." "Maybe I do." The words came out before Ethan could stop them. "It's not what I expected, but it's not terrible either." Victor leaned back in his chair. They'd been married 3 weeks, lived in the same house, attended events together, presented a united front to the world. But they'd never had a conversation like this, honest, unguarded, acknowledging that something had shifted between them. "I have a business meeting tonight," Victor said after a moment. "The kind that requires my husband's presence. Are you up for it?" "What kind of meeting?" "The kind where men with more money than morals decide how to divide up the city." Victor's smile was sharp. "You'll hate every second of it, but you'll look beautiful doing it, and that's all that matters." "You're such a romantic." "I'm a realist. Romance is for people who can afford to be vulnerable." Victor stood, straightened his cuffs. "Wear the navy suit. We leave at 8. The meeting was in a private room at one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, the kind of place where you needed connections just to get a reservation. Ethan had learned to navigate these spaces over the past weeks, how to smile without warmth, how to shake hands with men he despised, how to stand beside Victor and project the kind of unity that made people think twice about challenging them. Tonight's attendees included 3 men Ethan recognized from news reports, and 2 he didn't. All of them looked at Ethan like he was a curiosity, a puzzle they couldn't quite solve. "Victor," one of them said, Constantine, Russian accent thick as his gold watch. "Your new husband, still so young, so fresh. How are you finding married life?" "Enlightening," Ethan said before Victor could answer. "I'm learning all sorts of things about business I never knew existed." Constantine laughed. "I bet you are. Your husband has many businesses, some more legal than others, yes?" "All of my businesses are legal," Victor said smoothly. "The definitions just vary depending on who you ask." The meeting devolved into discussions of territory, shipping routes, percentages. Ethan sat quietly, playing the role of decorative spouse, until Dimitri's name came up. "I heard he tried to grab your boy," another man said. Chen, old enough to be Victor's father and twice as ruthless. "Bold move. Stupid, but bold." "Dimitri's always been more bold than smart," Victor replied. "It's why he's currently bleeding resources trying to maintain territories he can't afford to keep." "You hit him hard." "I made a point." Victor's hand found Ethan's under the table, squeezed once. "No one touches what's mine. I thought I'd made that clear years ago, but apparently some people need reminders." "And if he retaliates?" Constantine asked. "Then I'll remind him again. Harder." Victor's voice was ice. "I'm done being patient with men who think they can test me." The meeting ended around midnight. In the car on the way home, Ethan finally asked the question that had been burning in his chest all night. "Would you really go to war over me? If Dimitri tries again?" Victor looked at him, and in the dim light of the car, his expression was impossible to read. "Yes." "Why?" "Because you're my husband. Because I said I'd protect you. Because—" Victor stopped, jaw clenching. "Because the idea of someone hurting you makes me want to burn this entire city down. Is that honest enough for you?" Ethan's heart was hammering. "Victor, don't." Victor looked away, stared out the window. "Don't make this more complicated than it already is." But it was already complicated. Had been since the moment Victor kissed him on those museum steps. Since the first time Victor's protection felt less like strategy and more like something real. They were playing roles that were starting to feel less like performance and more like truth. The car pulled up to the mansion. They walked inside together, the silence between them heavy with things neither of them knew how to say. At the point where they'd normally separate, Victor to his wing, Ethan to his, Victor paused. "Ethan?" Ethan turned back. "If you want out," Victor said quietly. "If this is becoming too much, you can still walk away. I'll make sure you're protected. Make sure you land somewhere safe. You don't have to stay in this just because we started it." It was the kindest thing Victor had ever said to him. Also the thing that confirmed what Ethan had been trying not to admit for weeks. "I don't want out," Ethan said. "I'm exactly where I choose to be." Victor studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Good, because I'm not ready to let you go." He walked away before Ethan could respond, leaving Ethan standing in the hallway with his heart racing and the uncomfortable realization that revenge had stopped being the reason he stayed weeks ago. The next morning, Ethan found Lily in the garden again, same spot as yesterday. She looked up when he approached, then went back to her drawing. "Claire came to see you," she said. Not a question. "Yeah." "She's mean to you, I can tell." Lily added shading to whatever she was sketching. "She was always mean, even before." Ethan sat on the bench beside her. "Before what?" "Before you married Dad." Lily glanced at him, then away. "Used to come over all the time with that boy, Marcus. They'd laugh about stuff and Dad would get quiet. You notice that?" "I notice lots of things. People think kids don't, but we do." She turned the sketchbook around, showed him what she'd been drawing. It was Victor and Ethan, standing together in the garden. "Is this okay? I wanted to draw something happy." Ethan's throat tightened. "It's beautiful, Lily." "You make him less scary," she said, taking the sketchbook back. "Dad, he smiles more now, real smiles, not the fake ones he uses for business people." "I don't think You do." Lily looked at him seriously. "Mom died when I was 6. He hasn't smiled real since then. Until you." Before Ethan could process that, before he could figure out what to say, Lily's nanny called her in for lunch. She gathered her things, paused before leaving. "I'm glad he married you," she said. "Even if Claire's mad about it, you're nicer than she ever was." She left, and Ethan sat in the garden trying to reconcile the man he'd married for revenge with the father Lily described. The ruthless crime lord who'd orchestrated a fake marriage with the grieving widower who'd forgotten how to smile until his husband showed up. How many versions of Victor existed? And which one was real? That night, Ethan made a decision. He walked through the connecting door between their suites for the first time, knocked on Victor's bedroom door. Victor answered in sleep pants and nothing else, hair mussed from sleep. "It's 3 a.m. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Ethan stopped, looked at the man he'd married, really looked at him, saw the scars and the shadows and the exhaustion that came from holding an empire together through violence and will. "Can we talk?" Victor stepped back, let him in. The room was darker than Ethan's, more austere. Minimal furniture, no personal touches except a single photo on the nightstand, a woman holding a newborn Lily. "That's Anna," Victor said, following Ethan's gaze. "Lily's mother. She died in a car accident 4 years ago." "Lily told me." "Did she also tell you I was supposed to be in that car? That Anna took Lily to her dance recital because I had a meeting I couldn't reschedule?" Victor sat on the edge of the bed. "I've been paying for that choice ever since." Ethan sat beside him. "It wasn't your fault." "Wasn't it? I chose business over family. I always choose business over family." Victor looked at Ethan. "Until you. Dimitri tests me, I choose you. Claire shows up, I choose you, every time without hesitation. Do you understand what that means?" "That the arrangement changed. That I'm falling for you." Victor's voice was raw, honest in a way Ethan had never heard. "That this stopped being about revenge or strategy weeks ago and started being about the fact that I can't imagine this house without you in it. That I track your phone not just for security, but because I need to know you're safe. That the idea of you walking away—" Ethan kissed him, cut off the words with his mouth, his hands in Victor's hair, 3 weeks of tension and confusion and want finally breaking through. Victor made a sound low in his throat, pulled Ethan closer, kissed him back like he was drowning, and Ethan was air. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victor pressed his forehead to Ethan's. "This is a terrible idea. Probably the worst I've ever had. We're supposed to be acting. Feels pretty real to me." Ethan's hand found Victor's jaw, thumb brushing over his cheekbone. "Has for a while now." Victor pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "If we do this, if we make this real, there's no going back. You'll be all in, part of my world in ways that go beyond a ring and a contract." "I'm already all in." Ethan kissed him again, softer this time. "I think I have been since you offered me revenge and gave me a home instead." They didn't sleep that night, didn't do anything but talk and kiss and map the space between arrangement and real until dawn started creeping through the windows. By the time Ethan finally fell asleep in Victor's bed, Victor's arm around him like an anchor, the lines they'd drawn on their wedding day had been completely erased. What they were building now was something different, something neither of them had planned, something that felt dangerously like the thing they'd both sworn they didn't believe in anymore. The thing that made you vulnerable, made you stupid, made you choose another person over yourself. Love. And for the first time since that night on the stairs, watching his world collapse, Ethan thought maybe vulnerability wasn't the worst thing in the world. Maybe it was the only thing worth fighting for. The first crack in their fragile peace came from the last person Ethan expected, Marcus. It was a Wednesday afternoon, 2 weeks after the night Ethan had crossed the threshold into Victor's bedroom and never really left. They still maintained separate suites for appearance's sake, but most nights ended with Ethan falling asleep against Victor's chest, listening to his heartbeat like it was the only sound that mattered. Ethan was in the estate library, actually reading this time, when Marcus appeared in the doorway. Not the security Marcus, the original one, the friend who'd helped destroy Ethan's life. "How the hell did you get in here?" Ethan's book snapped shut. Marcus looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under bloodshot eyes, suit rumpled like he'd slept in it. "I told security I had information about Dimitri. They let me through to the gate. I just need 5 minutes. You need to leave before Victor finds you here. Please, Marcus took a step inside. I know you hate me. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but this isn't about us. This is about Claire. Something in his voice made Ethan pause. Fear. Real, bone-deep fear. What about her? She's working with Dimitri. Marcus moved closer, hands shaking. I tried to stop her, tried to talk her out of it, but she's not thinking straight, Ethan. She blames you and Victor for ruining her life, and Dimitri's using that. He's convinced her that if she helps him take Victor down, she can have everything back. Ethan stood slowly. You're lying. I wish I was. Marcus pulled out his phone, showed Ethan a series of text messages. Claire's name at the top, conversations about shipment routes, security rotations, Victor's schedule. She's been feeding him information for weeks, and tonight she's giving him the one thing he needs to get to Victor. What thing? Marcus's face went pale. You. She told Dimitri you'll be at the waterfront warehouse at 8, alone, inspecting a shipment Victor can't personally oversee. Ethan's blood went cold. I don't have anything scheduled at the waterfront. No, but Victor does. He's supposed to be there at 8:30. Marcus's voice cracked. Dimitri's plan is to grab you, use you as bait to draw Victor out. And when Victor comes for you, because he will, Dimitri's going to kill him. Claire thinks she's just getting rid of Victor. She doesn't understand Dimitri's going to kill you both. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm a piece of shit, but I'm not a murderer. Marcus shoved the phone back in his pocket. I loved you, Ethan. Maybe not the way you deserved. Maybe not enough to stop myself from fucking it up. But I loved you. And I can't let Claire get you killed just because I was too weak to be faithful. Ethan wanted to hate him, wanted to tell him to get out, to let whatever was coming happen. But the fear in Marcus's eyes was real, and the messages he'd shown were damning. Does Claire know you're here? No, she thinks I'm with her on this, that we're going to get revenge together for what you and Victor did to us. Marcus laughed, bitter and broken. Like we're the victims in this story. Like we didn't start this whole thing by betraying you. Before Ethan could respond, Victor's voice cut through the library like a blade. Marcus? Both of them turned. Victor stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 security guards, his face carved from ice. You have 30 seconds to explain why you're in my house talking to my husband before I have you removed in pieces. He came to warn us, Ethan said quickly. About Claire and Dimitri. Victor's eyes never left Marcus. Keep talking. Marcus repeated everything. The messages, the plan, the warehouse. By the time he finished, Victor's expression had gone from cold to something far more dangerous. Show me the messages. Marcus handed over his phone. Victor scrolled through them, jaw clenching tighter with each screen. When he finished, he looked at Marcus with something that might have been respect if it wasn't buried under layers of contempt. You understand what this means? Your girlfriend is committing treason against her own father, against her family. Ex-girlfriend. Marcus's voice was hollow. I broke it off an hour ago, when she told me the final plan, when I realized she was willing to let Ethan die just to hurt you. Victor handed the phone back. Get out of my house. If I see you again anywhere near my family or my business, I won't be merciful. I know. Marcus looked at Ethan one last time. I'm sorry, for all of it. I know it doesn't matter, but I'm sorry. He left, escorted by security. Once the library door closed, Victor turned to Ethan. How much did you believe? All of it. Ethan moved closer. I saw the messages, Victor. Claire's been feeding Dimitri information for weeks. And you trust Marcus, the man who betrayed you? I trust that he's terrified. That fear makes people honest in ways nothing else does. Ethan grabbed Victor's hand. We need to call off the warehouse inspection. Change the schedule. No. Victor's voice was granite. We need to spring the trap. Are you insane? They're planning to kill us. They're planning to kill me. You're just the bait. Victor pulled out his own phone, started typing. But they're expecting easy targets. One man trying to rescue his husband. They're not expecting what I'm actually going to bring. Ethan watched Victor work, watched him transform from the man who'd held him last night into the crime lord who'd built an empire on calculated violence. What are you going to do? I'm going to let them take you. What? Victor looked up, and his eyes were cold enough to freeze blood. Dmitri wants you as bait? Fine. We'll give him what he wants. You'll go to the warehouse at 8 exactly as Claire planned. Dmitri's men will grab you. And when they bring you to wherever Dmitri's hiding, when they call me to gloat, that's when we end this. You want to use me as actual bait. I want to finish this war before more people die, before Dmitri tries something worse. Victor's hand cupped Ethan's face, and for a moment the coldness cracked. I won't let anything happen to you. I'll have men surrounding that warehouse, tracking your every move. The second they take you, we'll know where Dmitri is, and I'll burn that location to the ground to get you back. This is crazy. This is necessary. Victor pulled him closer. Do you trust me? Ethan thought about the past 2 months, about a marriage that started as revenge and became something neither of them could name, about falling asleep listening to Victor's heartbeat and waking up in arms that felt like home. Yeah, he said, I trust you. Then let me protect you the only way I know how, by being 3 steps ahead of everyone trying to hurt us. The plan was simple in theory, terrifying in practice. Ethan would go to the warehouse at 8, wearing a tracking device so small he couldn't feel it embedded in his watch. Victor's men would be positioned around the area, but out of sight, ready to follow when Dmitri's people inevitably grabbed Ethan. Don't fight them, Victor instructed as they prepared. Let them think you're an easy target. The more confident they are, the sloppier they'll be. And if they hurt me before you get there? Victor's jaw clenched. They won't. I'll make sure of it. But the thing about plans is they only work if everyone follows the script. Ethan arrived at the warehouse at 7:55, driving one of Victor's less conspicuous cars. The waterfront was quiet, the kind of industrial silence that made every sound echo. He parked near the entrance, killed the engine, and waited. His phone buzzed. Victor, I'm watching. The second anything happens, we move. Ethan typed back, I know. He didn't add what he was really thinking, that he loved Victor, that if this went wrong, he needed Victor to know that these past 2 months had been worth every risk. Some things were better left unsaid. Safer. At 8:03, the van pulled up. Different vehicle than the parking garage attempt, but same basic approach. Door slid open, 3 men jumped out. Ethan didn't run, didn't fight. Just let them grab him, haul him toward the van, playing the terrified victim. One of them pressed something against his neck. A syringe, the sting sharp and immediate, and the world started to blur. The last thing Ethan heard before consciousness faded was one of them saying, Call Dmitri. Tell him we got the husband. When Ethan woke, his head was pounding and his hands were zip-tied to a chair. The room was dark, industrial, smelling of rust and old blood. Not the warehouse where they'd grabbed him, somewhere else, somewhere Victor's tracking would lead to. At least, that was the hope. He's awake. Ethan blinked until his vision cleared. 3 men stood around him, none of them familiar. Behind them, leaning against a wall like he had all the time in the world, was Dmitri. He looked like every crime lord cliché, expensive suit, gold rings, smile that promised violence. Younger than Victor, maybe mid-40s, with the kind of ambition that made men reckless. Ethan Hale, Dmitri said, moving closer. Victor's little husband. I've been curious about you. What kind of man makes Victor Caldwell lose his mind enough to marry him? Disappointed? Ethan's voice came out rough. Not at all. I can see the appeal. Dmitri circled the chair. Young, pretty, probably decent in bed. Victor always did have expensive taste. Is this the part where you monologue about your evil plan, or can we skip to the part where Victor shows up and kills you? Dmitri laughed. Confident, I like that. But you should know, Victor isn't coming to save you. He can't, because right now Claire is at the estate with a gun to his daughter's head. Ethan's blood turned to ice. Lily. Sweet little Lily, 10 years old, all alone with her nanny in that big house. Dmitri crouched in front of Ethan. Here's how this works. I called Victor 20 minutes ago, told him he has a choice, you or his daughter. He can come here and try to save you, leave Lily vulnerable. Or he can stay at the estate and protect Lily, let me kill you. Either way, I win. Either way, he loses someone he loves. You're bluffing. Am I? Dmitri showed him his phone, A photo of the estate's north wing, taken from inside. Another of Lily's bedroom door. Claire's there right now, waiting for my signal. If Victor leaves the estate, if he tries to come for you, she pulls the trigger. Ethan's mind raced. The plan had been for Victor to track him, to follow and ambush. But if Claire was at the estate, if Lily was in danger, Victor would never leave his daughter, would never choose Ethan over Lily, which meant Ethan was on his own. "What do you want?" Ethan asked. "I want Victor to suffer. I want him to know what it feels like to lose everything." Dmitri stood, "And then I want his territory, his connections, his empire. In that order. You're going to kill me. Eventually, but first, I'm going to make Victor listen while I do it. While I make you scream. While I take everything from him the way he's taken everything from me." Dmitri nodded to one of his men. "Make the call. Let's see which one Victor chooses." The man pulled out a phone. Ethan heard it ring once, twice, then Victor's voice, tight, controlled. "If you've heard him, he's alive. For now." Dmitri took the phone. "But you have a decision to make, Victor. Your husband or your daughter. You can't save both, so choose." Silence on the other end. Ethan could picture Victor in his study, jaw clenched, mind calculating odds and strategies and outcomes. Could picture him looking at Lily's photo on his desk, the one reminder he kept of Anna. "Let me talk to him," Victor said finally. "Let me hear his voice." Dmitri held the phone to Ethan's ear. "Make it good. It might be the last thing you say to each other." "Victor," Ethan's voice cracked, "is Lily? She's safe. Claire never made it past the gate." Victor's voice was steady, but Ethan could hear the rage underneath. "I had security pull her over a mile from the estate. She's in custody. Dimitri's bluffing." Relief flooded through Ethan, followed immediately by confusion. "Then why?" "Because I needed him to think the plan was working, to think he had leverage." Victor's voice dropped. "Hold on, Ethan. Just hold on a little longer." The phone was yanked away. Dimitri's face darkened. "You're lying. Claire's in the back of an armored vehicle, crying and screaming about how this is all Ethan's fault." Victor's voice came through the speaker, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I've known about her betrayal for 3 days, Dmitri." "You think Marcus was the only one feeding me information? I have people in your organization. I've known every move you planned before you made it." Dimitri's hand clenched around the phone. "Then why let us take him?" "Because I needed to know where you were hiding, and now I do." Victor's voice turned to ice. "Look outside, Dmitri. Count the shadows." One of Dimitri's men moved to the window, pulled back a grimy curtain. "Boss, we've got—" "There's at least 20 men out there, maybe more." "Surrounded," Victor said. "Every exit, every window, every possible escape route. You're not walking out of that building. The only question is whether you let Ethan go before I come in, or whether I have to pull his body from the rubble after I burn that place to the ground." Dimitri's composure cracked. He grabbed Ethan by the hair, yanked his head back, pressed a gun to his temple. "I'll kill him right now. I swear to—" The window exploded inward. Glass and wood and the sharp crack of gunfire filled the room. Ethan threw himself sideways, chair and all, hit the ground hard enough to knock the air from his lungs. More gunfire, shouting, the wet sound of bullets hitting flesh. Then hands on him, cutting the zip ties, hauling him up. James, Victor's head of security, blood on his face from a cut above his eye. "You good?" James shouted over the chaos. "Yeah, where's—" "Boss is coming through the front. We need to move." They ran through smoke and noise, James half carrying Ethan when his legs didn't want to work right. Through a hallway, downstairs, into a room where bodies were already cooling, and Victor stood over Dimitri's corpse with a gun still in his hand. Victor's eyes found Ethan across the carnage. For a moment, everything else faded. The smoke, the blood, the violence. Just Victor's face, raw with relief and rage and something that looked like fear. Then Victor was crossing the space between them, hands on Ethan's face, checking for injuries with shaking fingers. "Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine. Dizzy from whatever they injected, but fine." Ethan's hands covered Victor's. "You said you were 3 steps ahead." "I was 2 ahead and made up the 3rd as I went." Victor pulled him close, pressed his forehead to Ethan's. "When he said Claire was at the estate, when I thought for a second I might have to choose, but you didn't. You protected Lily and came for me." I had men watching the estate. Claire never got close. Victor's voice was rough. But if she had, if I'd actually had to choose, don't. Ethan cut him off. Don't finish that sentence. We both know you would have chosen Lily, and you should have. She's your daughter. And you're my... Victor stopped, looked at Ethan with something desperate in his eyes. I don't know what you are. Husband doesn't cover it. Partner doesn't cover it. You're everything, Ethan, and I can't lose you. The building groaned around them, flames starting to lick up the walls. James appeared in the doorway. Boss, we need to leave. This place is coming down. They evacuated into the night, into a chaos of Victor's men securing the perimeter and sirens approaching in the distance. Someone threw a blanket over Ethan's shoulders. Someone else handed him water. And through it all, Victor never let go of his hand. In the car on the way back to the estate, Ethan finally asked the question burning in his chest. What happens to Claire? Victor's face went cold. She committed treason, conspired with my enemy, put you and Lily in danger. She's still your daughter. She stopped being my daughter the moment she chose revenge over family. Victor looked out the window. I'll make sure she's safe. Set up somewhere far from here with enough money to start over. But she's never setting foot in this city again, never contacting you or Lily or anyone connected to me. Victor, she tried to have you killed, Ethan. Actually tried to help Dimitri murder you. Victor's voice cracked. I can forgive a lot of things. I can't forgive that. They drove the rest of the way in silence. When they arrived at the estate, Lily was waiting in the foyer, having apparently convinced her nanny that she wouldn't sleep until she saw her father and Ethan were home safe. She ran to Victor first, threw her arms around him. He caught her, held her tight, and for a moment he looked like just a father. Grateful his daughter was alive. Then Lily pulled back, looked at Ethan. You're bleeding. Ethan touched his temple, came away with blood. Must have hit his head when he'd thrown himself to the floor. It's just a scratch. Dad kills people who hurt you, Lily said matter-of-factly. He told me once, said anyone who tries to hurt you answers to him. Well, Victor had the grace to look embarrassed. Lily, it's okay. I think it's romantic. She took Ethan's hand. Come on, I'll get the first aid kit. I'm good at bandages now. She led Ethan away, chattering about her day, about the drawing she'd finished, about anything except the violence that had just unfolded. Victor watched them go, something soft crossing his face. Later, after Lily was finally convinced to go to bed, after Ethan had showered and changed and tried to wash away the smell of smoke and blood, he found Victor in his study. The room was dark except for one lamp, Victor sitting in his chair with a glass of something amber. Can't sleep? Ethan asked. Kept seeing you with that gun to your head. Victor didn't look up. Kept thinking about what I would have done if I'd been 30 seconds slower. Ethan moved around the desk, turned Victor's chair to face him. But you weren't. You got there. You saved me. This time. Victor pulled him down into his lap, arms wrapping around him like Ethan might disappear. Next time I might not be fast enough. Next time you might die because you're married to me. Then we make sure there's no next time. Ethan's hands framed Victor's face. Dimitri's dead. Claire's gone. The threat's over. There's always another threat, another enemy, another person who thinks they can use you to get to me. Victor's voice was hollow. Maybe this arrangement has run its course. Maybe you'd be safer. Ethan kissed him, hard, desperate, pouring 2 months of fear and want and love into it. When he pulled back, Victor's eyes were dark, hungry. I'm not leaving, Ethan said. Not for safety, not for sense, not for anything. You said I was everything to you? Well, you're everything to me too. So we figure this out together, or we don't figure it out at all? Victor's grip tightened. You should have run the day I proposed this insanity. Probably, but then I would have missed this. Ethan kissed him again, softer. I would have missed falling in love with you. The words hung between them, terrifying and true. Victor's breath caught. Ethan, I know it's messy. I know it started wrong, but it's real now, Victor. What I feel for you, it's the realest thing in my life. Victor stood, Ethan still in his arms, and carried him toward the bedroom. I love you. In case that wasn't clear from the small army I deployed to rescue you. It was pretty clear. Ethan's arms wrapped around Victor's neck. But I don't mind hearing it anyway. They made it to the bedroom, to the bed that had become theirs. And for the first time since that night on the museum steps, since the revenge plot that had brought them together, they loved each other without pretense or strategy or anything except the raw truth of what they'd become. Two broken people who'd found something whole in each other. Two enemies of circumstance who'd become partners in everything that mattered. Two men who'd started with lies and somehow stumbled into the most honest thing either of them had ever known. The aftermath of Dimitri's death didn't bring immediate peace. It brought lawyers, police investigations, and questions that Victor deflected with the practiced ease of a man who'd spent decades operating in shadows. Ethan watched him navigate it all. The detectives who came to the estate, the reporters who camped outside the gates, the business associates who circled like sharks sensing blood in the water. Through it all, Victor remained untouchable. Dimitri had attacked first, there were witnesses, and by the time the authorities pieced together what had actually happened, the story had already been written. Self-defense, protection of family, a tragedy, but a justified one. Claire was another matter entirely. She'd been arrested at the gate, caught with detailed plans of the estate's security system and text messages that proved conspiracy. Victor's lawyers had worked quickly, quietly, arranging a deal that kept her out of prison but exiled her from the city. Ethan had watched Victor sign the papers that sent his daughter away, had seen the way his hand shook just slightly before he steadied it. "Do you want to see her?" Ethan had asked the night before Claire was scheduled to leave. "Before she goes?" Victor had been silent for a long time, staring at the contract that guaranteed Claire's safety in exchange for her permanent absence. "No, if I see her, I might forgive her, and I can't afford to forgive someone who tried to kill you." "She's your daughter." "She was my daughter, the woman who conspired with Dimitri. I don't know who that is." Victor had looked at Ethan then, eyes haunted. "Maybe that's my fault. Maybe I failed her the same way I failed Anna. Maybe I'm so busy building empires I forget how to build families." "You haven't failed Lily." "Haven't I? She's 10 years old and she knows I kill people. She draws pictures of violence like it's normal." Victor's voice had cracked. What kind of father lets his child grow up in this world? Ethan had moved closer, taken the pen from Victor's hand, set it aside. The kind who loves her enough to keep her safe. The kind who makes hard choices so she doesn't have to. "You're not perfect, Victor, but you're trying. That counts for something." Now, 3 weeks after Dimitri's death and 1 week after Claire's departure, the estate felt different, quieter, like the building itself was exhaling after months of holding its breath. Ethan found Victor in Lily's room, sitting on the edge of her bed while she showed him her latest drawing. It was the garden again, but this time there were 3 figures, Victor, Ethan, and Lily herself, all holding hands. "It's for Mom," Lily was saying. "I'm going to put it in my memory box with her pictures, so she knows we're okay now." Victor's voice was rough when he spoke. "She'd like that, sweetheart." "Do you think she'd like Ethan?" Lily looked between them. "I mean, I know you loved her, but you love him too, right? Is that okay?" Victor pulled her into his lap, held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "Your mom would want me to be happy, and Ethan makes me happy. So yes, baby. It's okay." "Good." Lily squirmed free, bounded over to Ethan. "Because I like him too. He reads to me better than the nanny does. He does all the voices." Ethan laughed, caught her when she launched herself at him. "That's because your nanny has dignity. I gave that up weeks ago." Lily giggled, already pulling him toward her bookshelf. "Can you read now? The one about the dragon?" "Lily," Victor said gently, "it's almost your bedtime. Please? Just 1 chapter?" She turned those big dark eyes on her father, and Ethan watched Victor melt like he always did when it came to his daughter. 1 chapter, then sleep." Ethan read while Lily curled up between them on the bed, her head on Victor's chest, her feet in Ethan's lap. By the time he finished the chapter, she was half asleep, breathing deep and even. Victor carried her to bed, tucked her in with a gentleness that never failed to surprise Ethan. This man who'd killed Dimitri without hesitation, who ran an empire built on violence. He touched his daughter like she was made of glass. "Love you, Dad," Lily mumbled, already drifting. "Love you too, Princess." Victor kissed her forehead, then paused. "Love you, Ethan." "Love you, Lily." Ethan smoothed her hair back, watched her smile in her sleep. They left her room together, Victor's hand finding Ethan's in the hallway. It was such a small thing, such a normal gesture, but it still made Ethan's chest tight. 6 months ago, he'd been planning to propose to Claire. Now he was married to her father, raising her sister, living a life he couldn't have imagined in his wildest dreams. "I have something to show you," Victor said, leading Ethan through the mansion to a wing they rarely used. He stopped in front of a closed door, hand on the knob. "I've been working on this for a few weeks, since we made this real." He opened the door. The room inside had been transformed into an office, but not like Victor's study with its dark wood and leather. This one had windows facing the garden, a desk positioned to catch the morning light, bookshelves waiting to be filled. Personal. Warm. Nothing like the cold efficiency of Victor's workspace. "I don't understand," Ethan said. "You've been living in my house, sleeping in my bed, existing in my space for months now." Victor walked to the desk, ran his hand along its surface. "I realized you don't have anywhere that's just yours. So I'm giving you this. Your own office, your own space. You can work here, read here, hide from me here when I'm being impossible." Ethan's throat tightened. "Victor, there's more." Victor opened a drawer, pulled out a folder. "I've been looking into foundations, legitimate businesses, ways to use the money I've made, however I made it, to actually help people." He handed the folder to Ethan. "I thought maybe you'd want to run it. Use that business degree you got before Marcus hired you to waste your potential at his firm." Ethan opened the folder. Inside were proposals for youth programs, housing initiatives, scholarships. Millions of dollars allocated to actually making the city better instead of bleeding it dry. "You're serious? I'm trying to be better. For Lily. For you. For—" Victor stopped, looked away. "Anna used to tell me I was wasting my intelligence on violence, that I could build instead of destroy if I wanted to. I never listened. But lately, I've been thinking she was right. This is a lot of money. I have a lot of money, most of it made in ways that keep me up at night." Victor's voice went quiet. "I can't undo the past. Can't bring back the people I've hurt or fix all the damage I've caused. But maybe I can start doing something that matters. Something that isn't just about power and control." Ethan set the folder down, crossed to where Victor stood by the window. "You're going to go legitimate?" "Gradually. Carefully. I still have enemies, still have obligations I can't just walk away from. But yes, over the next few years I want to transition everything to legal operations. Keep enough influence to protect us, but stop," he gestured vaguely, "stop being the man who has to kill people to maintain his empire." What changed?" Victor looked at him, and his eyes held everything, grief and hope and fear and love all tangled together. "You did. The night Dimitri had you, when I thought I might lose you, I realized I don't want Lily growing up thinking violence is the only answer. I don't want her to be ashamed of her father, and I don't want you to wake up one day and realize you've tied yourself to a monster. You're not a monster. I've done monstrous things, and you're trying to do better. That's what matters." Ethan's hands found Victor's face, made him look up. "You think I don't know who you are? I've known since the beginning, and I chose you anyway. I choose you still." Victor pulled him close, held him like he was afraid Ethan might disappear. "I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." Ethan kissed him, soft and sure. "We'll figure it out together. The foundation, the transition, all of it. That's what partners do." Partners. "Well," Victor tested the word, smiled slightly. "I like that better than husband." "We can be both." They stood there in the new office, in the space Victor had created for Ethan to be his own person, and Ethan felt something settle in his chest. This wasn't the life he'd planned. It was messier, more complicated, built on a foundation of revenge and violence that would never fully wash clean. But it was real, and it was theirs. The foundation launched 3 months later at a gala that made their engagement announcement look modest. Ethan stood beside Victor in front of 200 of the city's wealthiest people and explained the mission, providing opportunities for kids who'd grown up the way Victor had, in neighborhoods where violence was currency and hope was a luxury. "My husband grew up with nothing," Ethan said, the lie smooth after months of practice. They'd crafted a backstory for Victor's childhood that was close enough to truth to be believable. He built everything he has through intelligence and determination. This foundation exists to give other kids that same chance, without them having to make the choices he did. The applause was thunderous. Checks were written. By the end of the night, they'd raised enough money to fund 5 youth centers across the city. In the car going home, Victor was quiet. "You okay?" Ethan asked. "You just convinced a room full of people to give money to someone they think is a self-made businessman. They have no idea half their donations are being laundered through my legitimate operations to fund this. Does it matter? The money's going to help kids either way." "I suppose not." Victor's hand found Ethan's. "You're better at this than I am. The talking, the convincing, the making people believe in something. That's because I actually believe in it. This foundation, what we're building, it's good, Victor, real good. Not just PR to make you look better." "I know, that's what scares me." Victor looked out the window at the city lights. "What if I can't do it? What if I try to go legitimate and just end up failing at that too? Then we fail together and try something else." Ethan squeezed his hand. "You don't have to be perfect. You just have to try." The trying became their focus over the next year. Victor gradually divested from his more violent operations, selling territory to rivals who were less bloodthirsty, shutting down the businesses that existed purely for harm. It wasn't clean, and it wasn't easy. There were threats, attempts at retaliation, moments when Victor had to choose between principle and survival, but he kept choosing survival in ways that didn't require bodies, kept finding solutions that didn't end in violence. And slowly, painfully, the empire he'd built started to transform into something that could exist in daylight. Ethan ran the foundation with a passion that surprised both of them. He hired staff, developed programs, spent his days working with kids who reminded him of every version of himself that could have existed if circumstances had been different. And at night, he came home to Victor and Lily, to a family he'd accidentally built from the wreckage of his old life. Marcus sent a letter a year after Dimitri's death. Ethan found it in the mail one afternoon, addressed in handwriting he still recognized. He didn't open it for 3 days. When he finally did, sitting in his office while rain hammered the windows, the words were simple. "Ethan, I know I have no right to contact you. I know you probably burned this letter without reading it, and if you did, I don't blame you. But I needed to say I'm sorry, not for what happened. I can't undo that. Can't take back the betrayal. But I'm sorry for being too weak to be the person you deserved. You were always better than me, better than all of us. I'm glad you found someone who sees that. I'm glad you're happy. You deserve to be. Marcus." Ethan read it twice, then folded it and put it in his desk drawer. He didn't respond. Didn't need to. That chapter of his life was closed, filed away with all the other versions of himself he'd left behind. Victor found him there an hour later, still staring at the drawer. "What's wrong?" Victor asked. "Nothing, just thinking about who I used to be, who I thought I'd become." Ethan turned to look at him. "I was going to propose to Claire. Did I ever tell you that? I had the ring picked out and everything. I was going to do it at Christmas." Victor moved behind the desk, hands on Ethan's shoulders. "Regret?" "No, just weird to think about. The life I almost had versus the one I'm living." Ethan covered Victor's hand with his own. "I would have been miserable. Married to someone who didn't love me, working a job I hated, pretending to be happy. And now? Now I'm married to someone who actually sees me, running a foundation that matters, helping raise a kid who's smarter than both of us." Ethan pulled Victor around into his lap. "Now I'm actually happy. That's the weird part. This thing that started as revenge, it became the best thing that ever happened to me." Victor kissed him, soft and sweet. "You became the best thing that ever happened to me, the thing I didn't know I needed." That's very romantic for someone who proposed to me as a business transaction. I've learned a few things since then. Victor's smile was warm, real. Like how to be a husband instead of just having one. Like how to love someone without trying to control them. Like how to be the kind of father Lily deserves instead of just the one she's stuck with. "You're a good father, Victor. I'm a better father because of you. Better man, too." Victor stood, pulled Ethan up with him. "Come on. Lily wants to show us the science project she's been working on. Something about volcanoes and chemical reactions." "Is she blowing something up?" "Probably. She's my daughter, after all." They walked through the mansion together, following the sound of Lily's excited voice. She'd set up her project in the kitchen, much to the cook's dismay, and was explaining something about baking soda and vinegar with the intensity of a professor. And when you combine them, she said, pouring ingredients into a papier-mâché volcano, you get an eruption. The volcano foamed enthusiastically, red-dyed foam spilling down its sides. Lily clapped her hands, triumphant. Victor and Ethan applauded, and the cook muttered something about cleaning supplies. Did you see? Lily bounced on her toes. I made a volcano erupt. Very impressive, Victor said, kneeling beside her. Though maybe next time we do the erupting outside? The internet said kitchens were fine. The internet also says a lot of things that aren't true. Victor wiped foam off her cheek. But you did a good job, Princess. Your presentation is going to be great. Later, after Lily had been convinced to clean up her experiment and start her homework, after dinner had been served and eaten, after the evening had settled into the comfortable routine they'd built, Victor and Ethan found themselves in the garden. It was the same garden where Ethan had confronted Claire over a year ago, where Lily drew her pictures, where so much of their complicated story had unfolded. But tonight, it felt peaceful. The flowers Victor's gardener maintained bloomed despite the cooling weather, and the light strung through the trees cast everything in a warm glow. I talked to my lawyers today, Victor said, breaking the comfortable silence, about making things official. Ethan looked at him. We're already married. I mean with Lily, adoption papers, making you her legal parent in every way that matters. Victor's voice was careful, uncertain. If you want that. I know it's a lot to ask. Yes, Ethan didn't hesitate. Yes, I want that. Victor's relief was visible. You're sure? Because once we do this, once you're legally her father, there's no walking away. You're committed to her for life. I've been committed to her since the first time she showed me one of her drawings and asked if I thought her mom would like it. Ethan moved closer. She's already my daughter, Victor. The papers just make it official. I never thought I'd have this again. A family. Someone to come home to who actually wants me there. Victor's voice went rough. After Anna died, I thought that part of my life was over, that I'd just focus on Lily and building the empire, and that would be enough. And now? Now I can't imagine my life without you in it. Can't imagine Lily growing up without you. Can't imagine facing any of this alone. Victor took Ethan's hands. You walked into my house planning to marry my daughter. Somehow you ended up saving me instead. Pretty sure we saved each other. Maybe, Victor smiled. But I'm grateful anyway. For every moment, every choice that led us here. They stood in the garden as night deepened around them. Two men who'd started as strangers bound by revenge and became something neither of them had the words for. Family didn't quite cover it. Love was too simple. Partnership too clinical. They were all of it and none of it. A marriage built on lies that became truth. A family assembled from broken pieces. A future neither of them had planned, but both of them chose. The adoption went through 2 months later. Ethan stood in a courthouse with Victor and Lily, signed papers that made him legally responsible for a child he'd already loved like his own, and felt something fundamental shift. He was a father now, not just by marriage or circumstance, but by choice and law, and the fierce protectiveness that welled up every time Lily called him Dad. She'd started doing that a few weeks earlier, casually, like it was no big deal. Dad, can you help me with my math homework? Other Dad is terrible at fractions. Victor had looked up from his paperwork, eyebrow raised. Other Dad? Well, I can't call you both Victor and Ethan. That's confusing. Lily had shrugged. So you're Dad and he's Dad. You'll figure out which one I mean from context. And that had been that. No ceremony, no big discussion, just Lily deciding her family looked like this now and moving forward with the confidence of a child who knew she was loved. The foundation grew. Within 2 years, they'd opened 8 youth centers, funded scholarships for over 100 kids, and created programs that were being copied in other cities. Ethan hired former gang members as mentors, convinced business leaders to provide internships, built a network of support for kids who needed proof that there were paths forward that didn't require violence. Victor transitioned the last of his illegal operations into legitimate businesses. It took 3 years and cost him relationships with men who'd been allies for decades. But he did it anyway, chose clean money over blood money, chose being able to look Lily in the eye over maintaining power through fear. He still had enemies, still had to maintain security, still had James and his team monitoring threats. But the violence became the exception instead of the rule. And slowly, Victor transformed from the man who'd proposed revenge to the man who funded youth programs and attended PTA meetings, and somehow made both look natural. 5 years after their wedding, Ethan stood in one of the foundation's youth centers, watching a group of teenagers practice job interview skills. One of them, a kid named Marcus, ironically, was struggling with his answers, too nervous to make eye contact. "Hey," Ethan said, kneeling beside his chair. "You know what I did at my first job interview?" "What?" Spilled coffee all over the interviewer's desk, completely soaked his paperwork. Ethan smiled at the memory. "Know what he did? Fire you? Hired me anyway. Said anyone who could stay that calm during a disaster would handle workplace stress fine." Ethan squeezed the kid's shoulder. "Point is, they're not looking for perfect. They're looking for potential, and you've got that in spades." Marcus tried again, did better. By the end of the session, he was making eye contact, answering with confidence. Ethan watched him leave with something like pride swelling in his chest. This was what mattered. Not the revenge that had brought him to Victor, not the empire they'd dismantled, not even the marriage that had started his strategy. This, helping kids find paths forward, this was what all of it had been for. Victor picked him up that evening, a rare occurrence. Usually, Ethan drove himself to the centers, but Victor had texted asking if he wanted company on the way home. "How was your day?" Victor asked as they pulled into traffic. "Good. Marcus aced his interview practice." "Which Marcus?" "Our Marcus. The one we hired from the East Side program." Ethan glanced at Victor. "Your day?" "Closed the deal on the waterfront property, the old warehouse district." Victor's voice held satisfaction. "We're converting it into affordable housing, 150 units. That's the site where Dimitri's men grabbed you." "Yes." Victor's hand found Ethan's. Seemed right to turn it into something that helps people instead of leaving it as a monument to violence. They drove in comfortable silence for a while, the city passing outside the windows. Ethan thought about the first time he'd driven these streets after the wedding, how foreign everything had felt. Now it was home. Every corner held a memory, every building a connection to the life they'd built. "Lily has a school play next week," Victor said. "She's playing the lead in some musical about dragons." "I know. She's been practicing her songs in the shower for a month." "Think we can both make it? Or is your schedule?" "I'll be there," Ethan said. "Wouldn't miss it." "Good," Victor smiled. "She asked if we could invite her Aunt Claire. I told her no, but I wanted you to know she's thinking about her." Ethan was quiet. Claire had reached out once, 3 years ago, a letter asking for forgiveness that Victor had burned without reading. They'd never discussed her after that. "Do you ever regret it?" Ethan asked. "Sending her away?" "Every day." Victor's voice was honest, raw. "She's my daughter. I'll always regret that it came to that, but I don't regret protecting you. I'd make the same choice again. Maybe one day, when Lily's older, we could let her reach out. If she wants to know her sister." "Maybe." Victor pulled up to the estate gates. "But that's Lily's choice to make when she's ready, not ours." Inside, Lily was waiting in the foyer, script in hand. "Finally, I need to practice my big number and I need an audience." "Let me change first," Ethan said. "No time. You can watch in your work clothes." Lily grabbed his hand, started pulling him toward the music room. "Dad, you too. I need constructive criticism." "I don't know anything about musical theater," Victor protested. "Then just clap at the end and tell me I'm brilliant." They spent the evening watching Lily perform, offering encouragement, laughing when she forgot her lines and ad-libbed something ridiculous. It was normal, domestic. The kind of evening Ethan had dreamed about when he was planning to propose to Claire. Family, love, home. He'd just been dreaming about the wrong family. Later, after Lily was in bed and the house was quiet, Ethan and Victor sat in the garden. It had become their ritual, these quiet moments at the end of the day. Time to decompress, to connect. to remember why they'd chosen this complicated, beautiful life. "Do you ever think about what would have happened," Ethan asked, "if I'd walked out that night instead of taking your offer?" "Constantly," Victor's arm wrapped around him. "You'd probably be working some corporate job you hated, married to someone who didn't deserve you, wondering why you felt so empty. And you? I'd still be the man who chose business over family, still be building an empire instead of a life, still be alone in this big house with nothing but money and regret." Victor pressed a kiss to Ethan's temple. "So thank you." "For what?" "For being angry enough to say yes, for being brave enough to stay, for seeing something in me worth saving." Victor's voice dropped. "For loving me when I didn't know how to love myself." Ethan turned in his arms, looked at the man who'd offered him revenge and given him everything instead. "You know what the crazy part is? I don't even hate Claire anymore. I don't think about her at all most days. She's just someone I used to know, someone who led me here. Think she's happy, wherever she ended up? I hope so. For Lily's sake, if nothing else." Ethan rested his head on Victor's shoulder. "Everyone deserves a second chance at happiness, even people who hurt us." They sat there as the stars came out, as the garden lights flickered on, as the night settled around them like a blanket. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, foundation work, business deals, Lily's play practice. But right now, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. The revenge that brought them together had long since burned out. What remained was something neither of them had expected, something better than either of them had planned. A family built from betrayal and violence, yes, but also from choice and commitment, and the stubborn refusal to give up on each other even when giving up would have been easier. Ethan had walked up those stairs expecting love and finding betrayal. He'd accepted Victor's proposal expecting revenge and finding redemption. He'd married a stranger and somehow ended up with exactly what he'd been searching for all along: a home, a partner, a purpose, a life worth living. "I love you," he said into the quiet night. Victor's arms tightened around him. "I love you too, more than I thought I was capable of." "Good," Ethan smiled, "because you're stuck with me for at least another 50 years. "Only 50? Fine, 60. But after that, you're on your own." Victor's laugh was warm, genuine. "Deal." They sat in their garden, in their home, in the life they'd accidentally built from the ashes of everything that had tried to destroy them. And for the first time in either of their lives, the future looked less like a battlefield and more like a promise. A promise they'd made to each other without words, without ceremony, without anything except the simple choice to stay, to fight, to build something beautiful from broken pieces. And they had. They really had.